The stars above Earth changed on a Tuesday morning. Commander Jake Martinez was drinking his third coffee of the day when every alarm in the Space Force Command Center started screaming at once. The screen showed something impossible. Ships, hundreds of them. They appeared out of nowhere, sitting in orbit like they owned the place. Jake dropped his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but he didn't notice. He was already running toward the main display, where his team gathered in stunned silence. The vessels were massive, each one the size of a small city. They were dark, angular things that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Get me satellite confirmation," Jake ordered, his voice steady despite the fear crawling up his spine. "And wake up everyone. I mean everyone." Across the Atlantic Ocean, Emma Walsh was in a meeting when her phone buzzed with an emergency alert. As the Secretary General of the United Nations, she had seen many crises. But the message on her screen made her blood run cold. Alien contact. Not a drill. Real vessels in orbit. She stood up so fast her chair fell backward. "The meeting is over," she announced. "Alien ships have arrived in Earth's orbit." The room erupted in chaos. People shouted questions, reached for their phones, and rushed toward the exits. Emma walked calmly through the noise, her mind already racing through protocols that suddenly seemed laughably inadequate. How do you negotiate with beings that can cross the stars? High above Earth, inside the largest alien ship, Commander Vexillar watched the blue planet below with satisfaction. This would be easy. It was always easy. His people, the Zarkath Empire, had conquered 847 worlds. Earth would be number 848. The humans had primitive spacecraft and basic weapons. They would surrender quickly like all the others. "Send the message," Vexillar commanded his communications officer. Standard terms. 72 hours. The message went out in every language Earth had ever spoken. It appeared on every screen, every device, every display on the planet simultaneously. The words were simple and terrifying. "People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Zarkath Empire. You have 72 hours to surrender your governments, your weapons, and your military forces. Comply, and you will be integrated peacefully. Resist, and you will be pacified by force. This is your only warning." Jake stared at the message on his screen. Around him, his team looked to him for orders, for hope, for anything. He thought about his wife and 2 kids at home. He thought about every person on the planet going about their morning, now learning that humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and that the universe had come to conquer them. "Get our defense grid online," Jake said quietly. "Every satellite weapon, every orbital platform, everything we've got. And get me a line to the president." Emma stood in the emergency session of the UN Security Council. Every nation's representative was there, either in person or by video. The room buzzed with panic and argument. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others demanded they fight. A few simply sat in shock, unable to process what was happening. "We need to respond," Emma said, her voice cutting through the noise. "But we need to be smart about this. Let me try to talk to them first." "Talk?" The Russian ambassador shook his head. "What can we possibly say to beings that can cross the stars? We are insects to them." "Maybe," Emma replied. "But insects can bite." She sent her own message back to the alien fleet. She asked for negotiations, for time, for a chance to understand what the Zarkath wanted. She used every diplomatic skill she had learned in 30 years of service. She appealed to reason, to mercy, to common ground between species. The response came in minutes. It was a video feed. Commander Vexillar appeared on screens worldwide. He was tall, nearly 8 feet, with dark blue skin and 4 arms. His eyes were golden and cold. When he spoke, his voice was translated by technology far beyond Earth's understanding. "There will be no negotiations. There are no terms to discuss. You will submit, or you will be forced to submit. This is how the universe works. This is how it has always worked. Accept your place." The transmission ended. Emma sat down slowly, her hands shaking. She had failed. There would be no diplomacy, no peaceful solution. The aliens had done this before, many times. They had a system. Humanity was just the next item on a very long list. Jake watched the same transmission in the command center. When it ended, he looked at his team. They were young, most of them. They had signed up to defend Earth from other humans, never imagining they would face something like this. He saw fear in their eyes, but he also saw determination. "Sir, what are our orders?" his second-in-command asked. Jake thought about the message, about how confident that alien commander had been. about how he said this was how the universe worked. Something stirred in Jake's chest. It wasn't hope exactly, it was something more stubborn. Our orders are to make them regret coming here, Jake said. If they think we're going to roll over like everyone else, they don't know humans very well. The first day passed in frantic preparation. Every nation activated their militaries. Weapons that hadn't been fired in decades were brought online. Space Force coordinated with every country that had assets in orbit. It wasn't much, but it was what they had. On day 2, Jake ordered the first strike. Every military satellite, every orbital weapon platform, every missile that could reach space fired at once. It was humanity's full arsenal, launched in one desperate attack. The missiles streaked toward the alien fleet like angry fireflies. Jake held his breath, watching the screens. Maybe, just maybe, they could hurt these invaders. Maybe they could show them that Earth wouldn't go quietly. The missiles hit the alien shields and dissolved like raindrops on hot pavement. Not one got through. Not one even made the shields flicker. The alien ships didn't move, didn't respond, didn't even seem to notice. Vexillar watched the human attack with amusement. That was everything they had, his tactical officer reported. Their full military capability. Pathetic, Vexillar said. They are more primitive than we thought. Send a response. Destroy their space station. Show them what real power looks like. The International Space Station had been humanity's pride, a symbol of cooperation, of reaching for the stars together. It took 30 seconds for the Zarkath to turn it into debris. One beam of purple energy, and centuries of dreams evaporated. Jake watched it happen on his screens. The station where his brother had worked last year, gone, just like that. He felt sick, but he couldn't look away. Around the command center, people were crying. Some were praying. Others just stared in shock. His phone rang. It was Emma. Jake, her voice was tight. The president wants to discuss terms of surrender. No, Jake said. What? I said no. Tell the president I said no. Tell everyone I said no. Jake, we can't win this. You just saw what they can do. They haven't even landed yet and they've already beaten us. Jake looked at the screen showing Earth below. His home. 7 billion people who had never asked for this fight. He thought about his kids, about what kind of world they would grow up in if humanity just gave up without really trying. Emma, I know we can't beat them with weapons. I know our technology is worthless against them. But I also know something else, he paused. They think they've already won. They think we're going to be like every other species they've conquered. I say we show them they're wrong. How? Emma asked. How do we fight something we can't hurt? We don't fight them the way they expect. We don't fight them like soldiers or governments or armies. We fight them like humans. Messy, stubborn, unpredictable humans who don't know when to quit. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a tired, slightly crazy laugh. You want to go guerrilla on an interstellar empire? I want to be so annoying, so persistent, so damn difficult that they wish they'd never heard of Earth, Jake said. I want every human on this planet to make their lives hell. No surrender. No governments handing over power. No clean conquest. If they want Earth, they're going to have to take it one bloody inch at a time. That's suicide, Emma said. Maybe. But it's our choice. That's more than they're offering us. On the third day, as the deadline approached, the Zarkath expected a formal surrender. They expected Earth's leaders to come forward, to hand over control, to beg for mercy. Instead, they got silence. No response. No communication, nothing. Vexillar frowned at his screen. This was unusual. Species always responded. They either surrendered or made one final defiant speech before being crushed. They didn't just go silent. Sir, should we proceed with landing forces? His second officer asked. Vexillar nodded slowly. Yes, begin the ground invasion. 12 major cities. Standard occupation protocol. This should take less than a week. As the alien dropships began their descent to Earth, Jake activated Protocol Defiance. It wasn't an official military plan. There was no documentation, no formal approval. It was just a simple message sent to every military unit, every government agency, every emergency service on the planet. The message said, no surrender, no retreat, no mercy. Make them pay for every inch. In San Francisco, an engineer named Lisa Chen read the message on her phone. She looked at her team in the tech company where she worked. They had been watching the news, waiting for orders to evacuate. Now they had different orders. Looks like we're not leaving, Lisa said. She picked up a wrench. Let's get to. The Zarkath dropships landed in 12 cities across Earth: New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Mumbai, Moscow, Mexico City, São Paulo, Cairo, Sydney, Johannesburg, and Los Angeles. The aliens expected panic and chaos. They got something else entirely. In San Francisco, Lisa Chen stood in the basement of her tech company with 20 other engineers. They had been working for 3 weeks straight, sleeping in shifts, eating whatever food they could scavenge. The building above them was damaged from alien patrols, but the basement remained hidden behind a false wall. "Hand me that tool," Lisa said, not looking up from the alien device in front of her. It was part of a Zarkath scanner, recovered from a crashed patrol drone. She had been taking it apart piece by piece, figuring out how it worked. "Lisa, you need to sleep," her colleague Marcus said. "You've been at this for 30 hours. "Sleep when I'm dead," Lisa muttered. She connected 2 wires and the device hummed to life. "Yes, okay, I think I've got it. If we reverse the power flow here, we can use their own scanners to track them instead." Marcus stared at the device. "That's insane." "That's brilliant. How did you figure that out?" Lisa shrugged. "I fix computers for a living. Alien tech is just really complicated computers. The principles are the same. Input-output processing. Once you understand the logic, you can hack it." Across the city in the ruins of Golden Gate Park, a former Marine named Carlos Rivera crouched behind a destroyed car. He had 15 people with him, all civilians who had taken up weapons when the aliens landed. They watched an alien patrol moving down what used to be a street. The Zarkath soldiers were massive, 8 feet tall and armored. They carried energy weapons that could punch through concrete. They moved in perfect formation, following their training exactly. That was their weakness, Carlos whispered into his radio. "Team 2, they're coming to you. Remember, wait for my signal." The alien patrol walked past ruined buildings. They had done this 100 times in the past 3 weeks. Search the ruins, find any humans, bring them in for processing. Simple, easy, routine. Then the ground exploded under their feet. Carlos had buried old construction explosives in the street. The blast threw 3 aliens into the air. Before they could recover, humans appeared from every window, every doorway, every hiding spot. They fired hunting rifles, threw homemade explosives, attacked with whatever weapons they could find. The aliens returned fire, but the humans were already gone. They vanished into buildings, into sewers, into passages only locals knew existed. The Zarkath tried to follow, but the buildings were trapped. Doorways collapsed. Staircases gave way. Every step was dangerous. By the time reinforcements arrived, the humans had disappeared completely. The aliens found 3 of their soldiers dead and 5 wounded. The humans had suffered no losses. General Krath, the Zarkath ground commander, studied the reports in his command center. This was wrong. This wasn't how conquests worked. By now, the human resistance should be broken. Their leaders should be captured. Their military should be destroyed. Instead, every day brought more attacks, more losses, more frustration. "How many casualties today?" Krath asked his aide. 15 soldiers dead, 23 wounded, 2 vehicles destroyed. "And human casualties?" "Unknown, sir. They take their dead and wounded with them. We never find bodies." Krath slammed his fist on the table. "This is impossible. They have no organization, no command structure, no supply lines. How are they still fighting?" The aide hesitated.
"Sir, I think that's exactly why they're still fighting."
"Every human is their own soldier. Every building is their own fortress. We can't cut off their command because they don't have one. We can't destroy their supplies because they make everything themselves." In a basement in Mexico City, a teenager named Ryan Foster sat in front of 6 computer screens. He looked 15 but had the skills of a master hacker. Before the invasion, he had been breaking into corporate databases for fun. Now he was coordinating resistance across the entire planet. "Okay, San Francisco team, your request is confirmed." Ryan typed into his encrypted network. "London has spare detonators. They're sending coordinates for a dead drop." His system was beautiful in its simplicity. No central server, no main hub, just thousands of computers worldwide, all connected through a mesh network that the aliens couldn't shut down. Every human with a device was a node in the network. Kill one and 1,000 others took its place. Ryan's screens showed messages from all over Earth. Tokyo needed medical supplies. Cairo had spare ammunition. Mumbai had figured out how to jam alien communications. Sydney had built a new explosive. The information flowed freely, shared instantly, adapted constantly. "Ryan, we have incoming," his friend Sophie called from the entrance. She was watching the street through a periscope they had built from mirrors and pipes. "How many?" Ryan asked, already shutting down his main system and activating the decoys. "6 aliens. They're doing another sweep." Ryan activated the fake signals in 3 other buildings. The alien scanners would show human activity in those locations instead of the real one. By the time they figured out the trick, Ryan and his team would be gone. Back in orbit, Commander Vexillar was reading reports with growing disbelief. 3 weeks into the occupation, and Earth was still fighting. Not just fighting. Winning. His forces controlled the major cities in theory, but in practice they couldn't move safely anywhere. Humans attacked from shadows, disappeared like ghosts, and struck again hours later. "The Emperor is requesting a status update," his communications officer said nervously. Vexler closed his eyes. How could he explain this? How could he tell the Empire that humans, primitive humans with outdated weapons, were defeating Zarkath forces? It was humiliating. It was impossible. It was happening. "Tell the Emperor we are facing unexpected resistance," Vexlar said carefully. "The humans are not following standard conquest patterns." "What does that mean, sir?" "It means they don't fight like soldiers. They fight like cornered animals. Vicious, unpredictable, and willing to die for no strategic gain." In Los Angeles, Lisa Chen's team had made a breakthrough. They had reverse-engineered enough alien technology to build their own weapons. They weren't as powerful as the Zarkath versions, but they worked. And more importantly, they could mass-produce them using Earth materials. "Test fire in 3, 2, 1, Lisa counted down. She pulled the trigger on the hybrid weapon. A bolt of blue energy shot out and melted a hole through 3 feet of concrete. The team cheered. "That's it," Lisa said, grinning for the first time in weeks. "That's the game changer. We can arm everyone now. Ryan, are you getting this?" "Copy that, San Francisco." Ryan's voice came through the radio. "Uploading your schematics to the network now. Every team with a 3D printer and basic materials can build these." Within hours, the plans spread worldwide. In Moscow, engineers built the first copies. In Tokyo, they improved the design. In Cairo, they figured out how to make them smaller. The knowledge flowed like water, impossible to stop, constantly adapting. Carlos got his new weapon 2 days later. It was crude, built from spare parts and alien scrap. But when he fired it at an enemy patrol, the shot went straight through their shields. The alien fell, and for the first time since the invasion began, Carlos felt hope. "They can bleed," he said to his team. "They can die. We just needed to learn their language." General Krath noticed the change immediately. Human attacks became more effective. His soldiers started dying in larger numbers. Equipment began failing in strange ways. The humans had somehow figured out Zarkath technology and were using it against them. "This is impossible," Krath repeated. He had said it so many times it had become a mantra. "They shouldn't be able to understand our technology. It took our own people centuries to develop this." "Sir," his science officer reported, "we've analyzed the human weapons. They're crude copies of our designs, but they work. Somehow, in just 3 weeks, they've reverse-engineered technology that should take decades to understand." Krath looked at the officer. "How? We don't know. Human brains seem to process information differently than any species we've encountered. They make intuitive leaps that our logical minds can't follow. They guess and experiment and fail and try again. It's chaotic and inefficient, but somehow it works." Back on his flagship, Vexlar made a decision he never thought he would make. He sent a message to the Zarkath homeworld, requesting reinforcements. More troops. More ships. More weapons. Earth was supposed to be easy. It was turning into a nightmare. The response came from Elder Zixtar, an ancient strategist who had overseen 1,000 conquests. His message was brief and cutting. "You are allowing primitives to defeat you. This is shameful. I am reviewing your campaign data. If I find incompetence, there will be consequences." Vexlar felt fear for the first time in decades. The Empire did not tolerate failure. He had to break Earth's resistance, and he had to do it soon. He ordered a new strategy: more aggressive patrols, harsher punishments, scorched earth tactics. If the humans wanted to fight like animals, he would treat them like animals. But he didn't understand. That was exactly what humanity wanted. Every harsh measure the Zarkath took made more humans join the resistance. Every destroyed building created more hiding places. Every executed prisoner made the survivors fight harder. Jake Martinez flew the stolen alien fighter straight at the Zarkath flagship. Alarms screamed in his ears, translated by technology he barely understood. The ship moved like it was reading his mind, responding to thoughts instead of controls. It was both incredible and terrifying. "Human vessel, you will stand down immediately," a voice boomed in his cockpit. Commander Vexlar himself. "Come and make me," Jake replied and fired every weapon the fighter had. The shots hit the flagship's shields, but Jake wasn't trying to destroy it. He was creating chaos, drawing attention, forcing them to respond. Behind him, 3 more captured alien fighters appeared. His team had gotten them working. They weren't alone anymore. The small human squadron danced through the Zarkath fleet, too fast and erratic for the big ships to track effectively. They weren't following any tactical doctrine the aliens knew. They improvised, making decisions on instinct rather than protocol. The Zarkath computers couldn't predict their movements. "This is insane," Jake's wingman, a pilot named Claire Johnson, shouted over the radio. "I love it." They struck at weapon systems, communication arrays, and sensor pods. The damage was minimal compared to the size of the fleet, but the psychological impact was enormous. Humans were in space, flying Zarkath ships attacking the Empire itself. The impossible had become reality. Down on Earth, 6 months had passed since the invasion began. The planet was scarred but unbroken. Cities were ruins, but humanity thrived in the rubble. They had adapted to war in ways that shocked even themselves. In what remained of Seattle, a biologist named Maya Patel worked in an underground laboratory. She had been studying samples of Zarkath technology, trying to understand why humans could interface with it so easily. What she discovered changed everything. "Look at this," Maya said to her assistant, pulling up microscope images on a cracked tablet. "Human neural pathways are forming connections with the alien circuitry. Not just adapting to it, actually integrating with it." "That's impossible," her assistant said. Then he laughed bitterly. "I keep saying that word. Everything is impossible these days." Maya shook her head, her eyes bright with excitement. "No, listen. Every other species the Zarkath conquered had specialized neural structures, perfect for their homeworlds but limited in adaptability. Humans are different. We're generalists. Our brains evolved to handle anything, adapt to anything, learn anything. That chaos in our evolution, it's our superpower." She pulled up more data. "The Zarkath technology is designed to work with specific neural patterns. But human brains are so flexible we can mimic those patterns. We can literally rewire ourselves to use their tools. And because our thinking is so different from theirs, the technology responds in new ways." "What does that mean for us?" her assistant asked. Maya smiled. It was the first real smile she had managed in months. "It means we don't have to just copy their technology. We can evolve it, make it better, make it ours." She sent her findings to Ryan's network. Within hours, the information spread worldwide. Engineers started experimenting with direct neural interfaces. Pilots practiced letting the ships read their minds. Soldiers learned to make weapons respond to intention as much as trigger pulls. Sam Brooks was one of the first test pilots for the new hybrid fighters. He was a former Air Force pilot who had been flying stolen alien craft for months. But this was different. This ship was built by humans using both Earth and Zarkath technology, designed to work with human neural patterns. He sat in the cockpit, wearing a helmet covered in improvised circuitry. "Okay, running pre-flight checks," Sam said into his radio. "Neural link established," the engineer replied. "How does it feel?" Sam closed his eyes and thought about flying. The ship hummed to life around him. He could feel it like an extension of his own body. Not just controls to manipulate, but a partner that understood his intentions. "It feels right," Sam said quietly. "Like it's alive. Like it's listening." He took off, and the ship moved like nothing the Zarkath had ever built. It turned tighter, accelerated faster, responded instantly to his thoughts. The alien technology was good, but combined with human intuition and creativity, it became something new. Something better. Sam flew against a Zarkath patrol, and for the first time he had the advantage. The enemy ships were faster and more powerful, but they were predictable. They followed programmed responses. Sam followed his gut. He won, word spread quickly. Human hybrid technology was outperforming pure Zarkath designs. The conquered were becoming the conquerors. General Krath sat in his command bunker, reading reports that made no sense. Human forces were pushing his troops back. Not just holding ground, taking it. The primitives who had barely survived the first week were now winning battles. How is this possible? Krath asked again. It had become his most common question. His tactical officer, a young Zarkath named Thren, spoke carefully. Sir, the humans are evolving their tactics faster than we can respond. Every strategy we use, they counter within days. Every technology we deploy, they steal and improve. They don't follow any known pattern of warfare. Then what pattern do they follow? Krath demanded. Chaos, sir. Pure creative chaos. They don't have rules. They make it up as they go, and somehow that works. In New York City, Carlos Rivera led a raid on a Zarkath ammunition depot. His team moved through the ruins silently, using captured sensors to avoid patrols. They had done this dozens of times. But tonight was different. Tonight they had new orders. Remember, Carlos whispered to his team, we're not just stealing supplies. We're taking prisoners. The team moved in fast. Hybrid weapons disabled the alien guards before they could react. Within minutes, the depot was secured. But instead of killing the remaining Zarkath, Carlos's team subdued and captured them. Command wants them alive, Carlos explained when his team looked confused. We need to learn from them, and they need to learn about us. The captured Zarkath soldiers were taken to a secure location where Emma Walsh waited. She had convinced the resistance leaders that prisoners could be valuable, not for torture or revenge, but for understanding. Commander Vexlar was among the prisoners. His ship had been boarded by Jake's squadron in a daring raid that cost Earth 3 pilots, but captured a Zarkath flag officer. Now he sat in a reinforced cell, facing the human woman who led Earth's diplomatic efforts. I am a prisoner of war, Vexlar said stiffly. Under galactic law, I am entitled to— There is no galactic law here, Emma interrupted. Your empire never recognized us as equals, so those rules don't apply. Vexlar felt a chill. Would they torture him? Execute him publicly? He had heard stories about how brutal humans could be. Instead, Emma pulled up a chair. I want to talk to you. Really talk. Help me understand why the Zarkath Empire thinks conquest is acceptable. Vexlar stared at her in confusion. What? Your people have conquered 847 worlds. Why? What's the point? What do you gain? Order, Vexlar said automatically. The galaxy was chaos before the Empire. We brought structure, peace, prosperity. Did you ask the conquered species if they wanted that peace? Emma asked. Vexlar frowned. The question made no sense. They were inferior. They needed guidance, and we're inferior, Emma said. By every measure, we're centuries behind you technologically. But we're beating you. How does that work if you're so superior? Vexlar had no answer. He had been asking himself the same question for 6 months. Let me show you something, Emma said. She pulled out a tablet and showed him videos from around the world. Humans rebuilding, humans fighting, humans helping each other, children playing in ruins, couples getting married in bomb shelters, people singing, laughing, crying, living despite the war. We're not trying to win according to your rules, Emma explained. We're just trying to survive, to protect each other, to keep being human. That's all. There's no grand strategy, no master plan, just millions of people refusing to give up. Vexlar watched the videos in silence. He saw something in the humans that he had never seen in any conquered species. They weren't just fighting for freedom. They were fighting for each other. Every human was willing to die so others could live. It was inefficient, illogical, and somehow beautiful. You can't win, Vexlar said quietly. Even if you defeat me, even if you defeat this fleet, the Empire will send more. They will never stop. Neither will we, Emma replied. That's what you don't understand. We know we might lose. We know we might all die. But we're going to fight anyway, because that's what humans do. We don't quit. Over the following weeks, Vexlar was allowed to interact with his human guards. He watched them, learned about them, began to understand them. They were crude and emotional, but they were also creative and determined. They made art in the middle of a war zone. They fell in love while hiding from patrols. They found joy in the smallest things. One guard, a young woman named Kayla Martinez, brought him food one day. You're Jake's prisoner, right? She asked. The commander who captured you? Yes, Vexlar said. He's my dad, Kayla said proudly. He's a hero. Saved hundreds of people in that raid. Vexlar looked at her. Jake Martinez, the pilot who had flown the impossible mission. The man who had captured a Zarkath flag officer. He was someone's father. Of course he was. Humans weren't just soldiers. They were people with families, dreams, fears. They weren't an enemy to. 1 year after the invasion began, Captain Danny Wu stood on the bridge of humanity's first faster-than-light ship. The vessel was a strange hybrid of Earth engineering and captured Zarkath technology. Humans had named it the Phoenix because it rose from the ashes of their burned world. All systems green, the engineer reported. We're ready to jump, Danny looked at his crew. They were a mix of military personnel and civilians, all volunteers for what might be a one-way trip. They were leaving Earth's solar system, heading into enemy territory. The mission was simple and insane. Hit Zarkath supply lines and prove that humanity could fight beyond their own planet. Take us out, Danny ordered. The Phoenix jumped to faster-than-light speed. The feeling was incredible, terrifying, exhilarating. Earth had barely achieved orbit travel before the invasion. Now 1 year later they were traveling between star systems. Humanity had evolved in 12 months more than in the previous century. They emerged near a Zarkath supply depot 3 light-years from Earth. The alien station was massive, a hub for ships traveling to the invasion fleet. It was also lightly defended. The Zarkath never imagined humans could reach it. Weapons ready, Danny said calmly. Let's make this count. The Phoenix attacked with everything it had. Hybrid weapons designed by Maya's team tore through the station's shields. The surprised defenders scrambled to respond, but by the time they organized, the Phoenix was already jumping away. First blood outside the solar system, Danny's tactical officer said with a grin. That felt good, but more importantly, the attack had been recorded. Danny had made sure of that. He broadcast the footage on all frequencies, especially those used by conquered species throughout the Empire. The message was simple. Humanity fights and humanity wins. You can too. Back on Earth, Grace Harper watched the footage with satisfaction. She was a former diplomat who now coordinated outreach to other conquered worlds. The Zarkath Empire had subjugated 847 species. What if some of them wanted to be free? Are we getting responses? Grace asked Ryan, who was monitoring communications across the galaxy. Yes, Ryan said, his eyes wide. Dozens of them. Some are just messages of support, but some are asking how to fight back. They want to join us, Grace smiled. Then let's teach them. She started broadcasting instructions, guides, and strategies. Everything humanity had learned about fighting the Zarkath went out to the galaxy. How to hide. How to ambush. How to reverse engineer their technology. How to never ever give up. The response was immediate. On a world called Vexar Prime, a species of bird-like beings received the human transmissions. They had been conquered 200 years ago and had accepted their fate. Now seeing humans fight, they remembered what freedom felt like. A resistance leader named Kiva watched the human videos over and over. These strange bipeds with no wings, no natural weapons, and primitive technology were defeating the mighty Zarkath. If they could do it, why couldn't Vexar? We fight, Kiva declared to her people. Like the humans fight. We make the Zarkath regret ever coming to our world. The uprising on Vexar Prime was swift and brutal. The Zarkath garrison was overwhelmed by attacks from every direction. The bird people had watched the human tactics carefully. They struck and vanished. They trapped and ambushed. They never gave the enemy a clear target. Similar rebellions started on other worlds. The Zarkath Empire, which had been stable for thousands of years, suddenly faced uprisings on dozens of planets simultaneously. All because of humanity. All because Earth had shown that resistance was possible. On the Imperial throne world, Empress Nal Thresh was furious. This is unacceptable. How have the humans infected other species with their madness? Elder Zixtar stood before her, his face grave. The humans have done something unprecedented. They have shared their knowledge freely. They don't want to conquer. They want to liberate. Every species they contact becomes inspired by their example. Then we will make an example of Earth, Nal Thresh declared. Assemble the full armada. 10,000 ships. We will end this once and for all. Zixtar felt cold dread. Your Majesty, that will leave much of the Empire undefended. Do it. Nal Thresh shouted. I want Earth destroyed. I want humanity erased from the galaxy. They are a disease and we will be the cure. On Earth, Jake Martinez received intelligence from Vexler about the coming armada. The former Zarkath commander had become invaluable, providing detailed information about Empire tactics and technology. 10,000 ships, Jake said quietly, looking at the estimates. That's everything they have. The entire Imperial fleet, can we survive it? Emma asked. She looked older than she had a year ago. They all did. War aged people quickly. Honestly? No, not alone, Jake replied. But we're not alone anymore. He pulled up a star map showing friendly territories. Vexar Prime had declared for humanity. So had a dozen other worlds. They were sending ships, volunteers, supplies. The Coalition fleet would number maybe 1,000 vessels all told. 1/10 the size of the Imperial Armada. We're still outnumbered 10-1, Emma pointed out. Jake smiled grimly. We've faced worse odds. Remember the first day? They said we had no chance. We proved them wrong. Grace Harper was working around the clock, coordinating with the new allies. Each species brought different strengths. The Vexar were incredible pilots. A species called the Korthan were master engineers. Another group, the Phelan, had experience with guerrilla warfare from their own failed rebellion decades ago. We're building something new here, Grace told her team. Not an empire. Not a conquest. A real alliance. Species working together because they choose to. Not because they're forced. One of her team members, a young Vexar named Kiva who had joined the human forces, clicked her beak thoughtfully. This is what the galaxy should have been all along. Free people helping free people. Danny Wu's Phoenix wasn't alone anymore. Humanity had built 5 more jump-capable ships. They ranged across Zarkath space, hitting targets, gathering intelligence, and recruiting allies. Every raid weakened the Empire. Every victory inspired more rebellions. On one mission, Danny's fleet encountered a Zarkath patrol. But instead of fighting to the death, the enemy ship surrendered. The captains sent a message they wanted to defect. They were tired of conquest. They wanted to join the Free Coalition. This is Captain Relthor of the Zarkath cruiser Morning Star. The message said, we have watched humanity fight for a year. You fight for each other. You fight for freedom. That is honorable. We wish to fight with you, not against you. Danny accepted their surrender and welcomed them as allies. More and more Zarkath were questioning their empire. Why were they conquering? What was the point? Humanity had shown them a different way. Vexillar, watching this development from Earth, felt something he had never experienced before. Hope. Real hope that the galaxy could change. That the endless cycle of conquest could end. He spoke to the defecting Zarkath officers via communication link. You have made the right choice, he told them. I spent my entire life serving the Empire. I thought we were bringing order. We were only bringing suffering. These humans have taught me what true strength is. Not the power to dominate, but the courage to protect. The defectors spread the word through secret channels. Within the Zarkath military, a quiet rebellion was growing. Not all of them were ready to switch sides, but many were questioning orders. Seeds of doubt had been planted. Empress Nal Thresh saw the reports and grew more desperate. The Empire was fracturing. Species were rebelling. Even her own people were defecting. All because of one stubborn, primitive species that refused to die. Launch the Armada, she ordered. End this now. 10,000 Zarkath warships gathered in space. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. The fleet was so vast it took an hour just for all the ships to form up. They jumped toward Earth, ready to end humanity forever. On Earth, everyone knew they were coming. Sensors picked up the massive fleet 2 days out. The Coalition forces gathered in defense. 1,000 ships from dozens of species all standing together. This is it, Jake told his command staff. Everything we've fought for comes down to this battle. If we lose, the Empire wins. Every species goes back in chains. Every dream of freedom dies. Then we won't lose, Lisa Chen said simply. She was now the chief engineer for the entire Coalition fleet. Her hybrid designs were the standard for all their ships. Sam Brooks led the fighter squadrons, a mix of human and alien pilots flying ships that blended the best of multiple technologies. They trained together, fought together, and trusted each other completely. Carlos Rivera commanded the ground forces, ready to defend Earth if the fleet failed. His guerrilla fighters had become the template for resistance movements across the galaxy. Emma Walsh stood ready to negotiate if possible, fight if necessary. She had become the voice of the Coalition, the person who could unite dozens of species under one cause. Ryan Foster's network connected everything. Every ship, every soldier, every civilian. Information flowed freely, instantly, keeping everyone coordinated. Maya Patel had developed new weapons specifically for this battle. Technology that she promised would surprise the Zarkath. They think they know what we can do, she had said. They're wrong. As the Imperial Armada approached, Danny Wu's Phoenix was positioned. The space between Earth and Mars had become a battlefield unlike any in galactic history. 10,000 Zarkath warships faced a coalition force, but now hundreds of those Imperial vessels were turning against their Empress. The mutiny spread like wildfire through the fleet, all ships showing red on tactical or hostile. Jake Martinez called out from his command station, "Green or friendly, and we have a lot more green than we expected." Aboard the Imperial flagship, Empress Nal Thresh watched her fleet fracture with rage and disbelief. "Fire on the traitors!" she screamed. "Destroy them all." But her orders created confusion. Zarkath ships that had fought together for centuries were now pointing weapons at each other. Some obeyed the Empress. Others joined the mutiny. The once unified Imperial Armada descended into chaos. Danny Wu saw the opening. "All coalition forces, this is Phoenix. Focus fire on ships that are still hostile. Protect the ones who joined us. Let's turn this around." The coalition fleet moved as one. Human hybrid fighters, Vexar interceptors, Korthan destroyers, and defected Zarkath cruisers all working together. They had trained for this, planned for this, hoped for this. Now it was happening. Sam Brooks led his fighter wing straight into the heart of the battle. His ship responded to his thoughts, moving in ways that confused enemy targeting systems. Behind him, pilots from 6 different species followed his lead. They had all learned the human way of fighting, chaotic, creative, and utterly unpredictable. Red Squadron, break left. Blue Squadron, with me, Sam called out. Let's show them what freedom looks like. The fighters wove through the massive capital ships, targeting weapons and engines. They were gnats attacking elephants, but they were very effective gnats. Every disabled ship was one less weapon pointed at Earth. On the ground, Carlos Rivera watched the battle from command centers across the planet. His forces were ready if any enemies made it through the fleet. But for the first time in a year, he felt something close to confidence. "Look at that," Carlos said to his team, pointing at the screens. "They're fighting each other. We broke them. We actually broke the Zarkath Empire." One of his soldiers, a former teacher named Paul Grant, shook his head in wonder. "A year ago, we were just trying to survive. Now we're winning a war against an interstellar empire." "That's humanity for you," Carlos replied with a grin. "We don't know when to quit." In her lab, Maya Patel activated her surprise weapon. It was a broadcast signal, carefully designed to interface with Zarkath neural networks. It didn't hurt anyone. It just showed them the truth. Every Zarkath in the battle suddenly received a transmission. Videos of conquered worlds suffering, records of species enslaved, evidence of corruption in the Empire's leadership, and most powerfully, images of those same conquered worlds now fighting for freedom inspired by humanity. "Let them see what they've been part of," Maya said quietly. "Let them choose." The effect was immediate. More ships stopped fighting. More commanders questioned their orders. The truth was a weapon more powerful than any gun, and Maya had just deployed it across the entire battlefield. Aboard the Imperial flagship, Empress Nal Thresh realized she was losing control. Her own crew was looking at her with doubt in their eyes. They had seen the transmissions too. They knew the truth now. "Your Majesty," her second-in-command said carefully, "perhaps we should consider—" "Never." Nal Thresh pulled out a weapon and fired at him. The shot went wild, hitting a control panel instead. Sparks flew. The bridge descended into panic. "The Empress has gone mad," someone shouted. Security forces moved to restrain her, but Nal Thresh fought like a cornered animal. In the chaos, she managed to activate the flagship's self-destruct sequence. If she couldn't win, she would take everyone with her. But Vexillar had taught the Coalition everything about Zarkath systems. Danny Wu saw the flagship's power spike and knew what it meant. "All ships, emergency evacuation protocol for the Imperial flagship," Danny broadcast. "It's going to explode." The mutinous Zarkath ships that were close to the flagship jumped away. Coalition forces did the same. The Empress's own people were abandoning her. Within minutes, the massive warship was empty except for Nal Thresh herself. She stood alone on the bridge, watching her empire crumble on the view screens. Every world was in rebellion. Every fleet was fracturing. The order she had spent her life maintaining was collapsing. "This is your fault," she whispered, staring at Earth on the screen. "One primitive species." "How did you do this?" The flagship exploded in a flash of purple energy. Empress Nal Thresh, the last absolute ruler of the Zarkath Empire, died believing she had failed to understand the most important truth. Freedom is more powerful than any weapon. With the Empress dead and her flagship destroyed, the battle ended not with a final shot but with silence. The remaining hostile ships simply stopped fighting. There was no one left to give them orders. The Empire's command structure had collapsed. "Cease fire," Jake ordered. "All coalition forces cease fire. The battle is over." Emma Walsh immediately opened communication channels. "To all Zarkath commanders, this is Secretary General Emma Walsh of Earth. We are not your enemies. We never wanted to destroy your people. We only wanted to be free. Join us. Help us build something better." The responses came slowly at first, then faster. One by one, the remaining Imperial ships surrendered. Not in defeat, but in hope. They wanted what the Coalition offered, a chance to choose their own path. Captain Relthor, who had been one of the first defectors, took charge of organizing the surrendered vessels. "We will need to establish new governments on all Imperial worlds," he told Emma. "The transition will be difficult." "We'll help," Emma promised. Not as conquerors, as friends. On Earth, people poured into the streets. They had been watching the battle on every screen, holding their breath with every explosion. When news came that the Empire had fallen, the celebration was spontaneous and global. In San Francisco, Lisa Chen hugged her team of engineers. They had built the weapons that won the war. In Moscow, Tokyo, Cairo, and 100 other cities, people danced and cried and held each other. The war was over. They had survived. Jake Martinez found his daughter Kayla in the crowd of celebrating personnel. They hugged tightly, both of them crying. "We did it, Dad," Kayla said. "We actually did it." "No, sweetheart," Jake replied. "You did it. Your generation. You'll inherit a galaxy that's free now. Make something good with it." Grace Harper was already working on peace negotiations. Representatives from dozens of species were gathering on Earth for a historic summit. They would write a new charter for the galaxy, one based on cooperation, not conquest, on choice, not force. Kiva, the Vexar resistance leader, arrived on Earth as an ambassador. She met Grace at what remained of the UN headquarters in New York. "Your species saved mine," Kiva said, her feathers ruffling with emotion. "We were slaves. Now we are free. How can we ever repay this debt?" "By staying free," Grace replied. "By helping others become free. By building the galaxy we all deserve." Ryan Foster's network had become the foundation for galactic communication. Every species, every world, now connected through the system that one teenager had built in a basement. Information flowed freely. Knowledge was shared. The darkness of censorship and control had been replaced with the light of truth. "Dude, I'm famous across the galaxy," Ryan said to his friend Sophie. "That's so weird." "You earned it," Sophie replied. "You kept us connected when everything was falling apart." Maya Patel was contacted by scientists from 100 worlds. They all wanted to study her research on human-alien technological integration. She shared it freely, just as humanity had shared everything. Knowledge belonged to everyone. "The key is flexibility," Maya explained in a lecture broadcast across the galaxy. "Humans succeeded because we could adapt. But every species has unique strengths. Combine them all, and imagine what we can achieve." Sam Brooks was training pilots from allied species in the new hybrid tactics. They came to learn from the human who had never lost a dogfight. He taught them that skill was important, but creativity was essential. "Don't just follow the manual," Sam told a class of diverse alien pilots. "Trust your instincts. Make your ship an extension of yourself. That's the human way." Carlos Rivera helped establish the Galactic Defense Initiative, a volunteer force designed to protect free worlds from any future threats. It wasn't an empire. It wasn't a conquest. It was mutual protection by choice. "We learned the hard way that freedom has to be defended," Carlos told the first class of GDI recruits. "But we also learned that when free people stand together, nothing can defeat them." Vexillar had a unique role in the new order. As a former Zarkath commander who had switched sides, he understood both perspectives. He worked with Emma to help former Imperial worlds transition to self-governance. "It will take time," Vexillar told Emma during one of their planning sessions. "My people have known only the Empire for thousands of years. Democracy is alien to us." "We'll help you learn," Emma said. "We all had to learn it once. Some of us are still learning." 5 years passed. The galaxy transformed in ways no one had imagined. The Zarkath Empire dissolved into independent star systems. Some formed democracies. Others chose different governments, but all chose freely. Trade flourished between worlds. Art and culture mixed and blended.